I think the most fascinating elements of this journey and this voyage that we can choose to take is how it affects us emotionally. Often we don't know the emotions that we're experiencing until the very end. In the beginning stages, the emotions we experience tend to be quite negative. They tend to be based around blame and transference, projection, blaming other people, blaming other situations and circumstances. But as we go through the process of personal growth development, we start to develop a need to find solutions. And of course, that need to find solutions must have its own evolution, emotionally speaking. As much as we'd like to think that we can just flick a switch and change ourselves overnight, that's simply not true. What got me thinking about this was the number of self-help gurus I see in podcasts who tell me about some aha moment they had, or some life-changing circumstance, or some brief encounter. If only life were that simple. No, the truth of it is, in order to grow personally, one has to transition through a series of emotional responses before true ownership can happen. You go from blame and avoidance into silver bullet thinking, where you think that one special action or one rescuer is going to be the solution to all of your challenges. And then emotionally you start to realize that the cavalry isn't coming. It's not a bad thing to realize this, because it means that you're now emotionally nudging yourself closer and closer to being the architect of your own success, rather than trying to outsource your success to other people, or seeking some kind of guru, rescuer, or knight in shining armor. Then what happens is that emotionally you start to engage in an uninformed optimism. Now, uninformed optimism is a wonderful feeling, a little bit like motivation. However, the dopamine spikes and the addictive qualities of uninformed optimism can cause somebody to fall by the wayside, because rather than seeing a project through and going through to the next stage of their emotional evolution, they may prefer to stay in a comfort zone of feel-good dopamine optimism. Most people consume without subscribing. I do it myself regularly with other channels, so I understand. But if you do get an opportunity to hit the bell, or hit a like, or make a comment, or subscribe, hey, there are 4 choices, 4 ways that you can make this old man happy. So this is why this stage 3, can be dangerous, because emotionally you could find yourself quite vulnerable. Even though you're starting to promote a more active and purposeful outlook, you're still quite emotional in your circumstances and in your emotional life. And uninformed optimism is a big feature of that. Hold on to the good feeling. Hold on to almost the naivety. But don't feel that this is going to be the answer to your problems. Good feelings. The road to hell is paved with good intentions, remember. Good feelings alone are not going to solve the challenges that you face. So be prepared for that emotionally, and then emotionally you might develop into a more experimental phase. You may become more personally engaged and feel a better sense of ownership about your own curiosity. You may start to ask questions that never occurred to you before. The reason you're asking questions that never occurred to you before is because now, on an emotional level, you are better equipped to answer those questions. And often we never ask ourselves a question that we can't answer. Unfortunately, in the early stages, emotionally, we may ask ourselves questions that we certainly can answer, but they may be questions like, why am I such a loser? Or why do I always fail? What happens is that as you go through the personal growth stages of development, you start to apply more intelligent questions to yourself. Questions you can answer surely, but don't have a negative impact or consequence for you. They don't leave you feeling vulnerable and scared. They leave you feeling empowered and proactive. So let's go for that stage, because finally, emotionally, you become reasonably detached. The final stage of that personal development growth, or personal growth per se, is that you become more objective, more scientific, a little bit more dispassionate. You do feel the emotion, and you feel the thrill and the kick of being able to take charge of your own destiny to a greater extent. That's where the emotional life becomes a different kind of thing. Whereas once before, emotions were a consequence, a reaction, a response. Now your emotions are a proactive and controlling hand on the rudder. The kinds of decisions you're making are based on the kinds of emotions you're feeling. And the kinds of emotions you're feeling at the 5th stage of your personal growth are positive, assertive, and informed emotions. Isn't that fascinating? And the most fascinating thing about this is that it's never too late to engage in this process. We are neuroplastic. We can continue to learn and adapt all the way throughout our lives. If we so desire, we can engage in a new voyage or a new journey of self-discovery anytime we wish. Don't expect a silver bullet. Don't expect a knight on a shining... Let me say that again. But don't expect a silver bullet to slay your werewolves. Don't expect a guru to be the answer to your problems. Don't expect the cavalry to come to your rescue. Forget about that. Those are entitled thoughts. They're emotionally loaded thoughts. However, if you are willing to take charge of your emotions and take charge of your own journey, you can enjoy that growth and that transition through those stages and emerge through into the light almost at the far end of it. It's a fascinating way to go about your business. I strongly suggest you give it a shot. And so, fellow seeker, I'd like to get going now. And so before I go, I'll leave you with my one final thought. And that is, whatever it is you dare to do or dream, begin it now.